All right, this time being late is really on me. And damn high school lacrosse game, and then all of a sudden the kid just waited and waited and waited, and I'm really running behind. So I apologize to everybody off the start. Welcome to the Krug Show. That's Sterling Bennett. We'll try to recover right now. Off and running on the Krug Show on a Thursday night. 9:28 West Coast. Supposed to go at 9. Ouch. Welcome to the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. The best barbecue in all of Northern California is Pig and a Pickle. Check them out there in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out, and they do run out. So get there early, get some brisket. Get some brisket chili. Tell them that Krug sent you. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Pig and a Pickle, brand new location opening in Petaluma later on this year. Also, the Krug Show is presented right now by Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app. Prize Picks is super simple. You just pick more or less on player stats and even game outcomes and build your lineup. So it's available in most states, including this state, California, where I'm at. So if you haven't checked it out yet, use code HMA when you play. When you play $5, you get $50 in lineup instantly. That's a pretty good little payback. All right, we're off and running. We'll talk more about them in a bit. We'll talk more about all of our sponsors as we go. I apologize for being late. Sterling is here. We love Thursday nights. Sterling loves being here on Thursday nights. The crowd absolutely goes crazy for Sterling. I said, hey, you know what? I'm a little bit late. Can you guys give me a hand? It's like
nice.
Nothing. It's just like friends and family. Then I say, oh, wait a second. We might be able to. It's Thursday night. We might be able to get Sterling freaking Bennett in the house, and the place goes nuts. So anyway, we're always fun to play with the soundboard.
The damn gong.
Okay. All right, we're off and running. 49ers news. John Lynch said the other day, Mama Bosa would love for Joey to be a Niner, but I don't know if we have enough money. And I think he kind of said, I think he was being totally candid there that, they have interest. But it's about budget and what's he asking for and what do they have to spend and so on and so forth. And it didn't sound like, it was almost like he was telling the fans as well, like, hey, don't bank on this. It's not going to happen. We're going to have to go a different route. But then that hasn't stopped many of the football media people who write about this sport from connecting Joey Bosa to the Niners. And it does seem like it makes sense if eventually they can get on the same page financially. What's your prediction here? Do you think a market, pops up for him elsewhere? Or do you think that the Niners and Joey Bosa after the draft maybe get together and he's in San Francisco or Santa Clara or wherever you want to call the Niners?
Yeah, I don't see the Niners and Joey Bosa ever coming together at this point in time, whether it's after the draft, pre-draft. Maybe it happens. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'm okay with that being the case, but I just don't see a world where, at least in this year, they are together. I think Joey Bosa probably goes someplace like the Baltimore Ravens, plays alongside Trey Hendrickson. Jesse Minter's now the head coach over there. I just don't think with the way they're building. So, like, if you sign Joey Bosa, he's going to want $10 to $12 million per year. Maybe it's incentive based. I don't know.
Right.
But are you going to bench Michael for Joey Bosa, where Joey Bosa is not the same pass rusher he once was? And I don't think Joey Bosa is saying, hey, I'll take base downs off if that means I'm playing only on third downs.
I don't know if I like either. I don't know if I like either of those guys off the edge. I think I like both those guys inside on third downs. To be honest.
So it's like, I don't think Joey Bosa, despite the name being a fit, from a play style standpoint and what San Francisco wants to do, I don't think Joey Bosa actually fits the San Francisco 49ers. So I wouldn't do it if I was them, even if you had the money. So I am not a fan of signing him whatsoever. I don't think being in a rotation would work for him. And I don't think it works for San Francisco either. So I am a no-go on Joey Bosa, albeit besides name value. That's kind of all that ties those two parties together.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, it's not like Joey Bosa is just, the perfect football player at this point. Now, he did have a bunch of forced fumbles, and forced fumbles are change of possessions, and those are very valuable plays. And he did lead the league last year in forced fumbles. So there is some savviness to his rush and to his game that could be a little bit more valuable than your average edge rusher that you might get out of the draft. But I think he's kind of a post-draft item anyway. I think we will deal with it the way the Niners deal with it, which is we'll deal with it later. Let's talk a little bit about the draft because it is exactly 3 weeks away. We are now on April 2nd. The draft is coming up on the 23rd and exactly 3 weeks away. And it's time to start getting into talking turkey on exactly how we want to play this. What do you think the best route is for the Niners? And I want to just get deep into that singular discussion. And what I'll do is we're not going to do a whole freaking mock draft, but I do want to share the screen and just take a look at what the board looks like. And here we go. This is what the board looks like. Fernando Mendoza. I don't know if he's going to start with the Raiders. It sounds like Cousins is going to start. There were some amazing numbers today on Fernando Mendoza that we'll get to as well. But here we go. Here is the draft. I didn't make it go fast, so it's going slow. It's very dramatic. It's very dramatic. Dylan Thieneman, Spencer Fano, Monroe Freeling. Oh, my God. So we're getting down to the Niners pick here at 27. All right. Then we'll move these trade offers out of the way for a sec. So in this mock draft, the guys on the right here are all available. And the last 5 picks before the Niners picked were Avian Terrell, Caden Proctor, Blake Miller, Peter Woods, Caden McDonald. So a lot of beef. And before that, Owane went 21 to the Steelers. Before we get into what we might want to do at 27, if we're the Niners, looking at the way this first round fell, is there anything that is like you see as interesting or an opportunity to trade up or, because it is interesting in this particular mock, Ione, who I think, Venga from Penn State, who's just gigantic and awesome, he fell past 20. And that to me was the point where I was like, if he fell past 20, I think might be making a phone call if I were the 49ers. I know they're not in really position to trade up, but I'd at least be calling around, finding out what it would take because I really like that player. Do you see a player or do you have a player looking at this that you would have considered trading up for looking at this list here?
No, I don't think San Francisco has the picks nor the players involved to move up from 27 to get near 16, 15 to get maybe one of the top wide receivers on the board, Omar Cooper Jr., Mekhi Lemon. Now, you can always turn the clock back and say, well, if Aaron Rodgers is stringing the Pittsburgh Steelers along again, like what are they doing at quarterback? I just don't see that happening. And I also don't think San Francisco should be trading up. They should be trading back. They have to get more picks in round 2 and 3 and maybe even 4 early on. So I wouldn't be trading up at all. I think there's plenty of great players on the board currently, Mesidor, Concepcion, and I'm sure many more below the current crop you can see on your screen. But no, I am not trading up for anybody that you've seen inside maybe the top 20, 25 right there.
Yeah, I don't think the trade up is in the cards either, really. I do think it's interesting to take note in this draft of storm clouds forming in Arizona, though. I mean, You've got David Bailey now off the edge, and they also have Walter Nolan, and that Cardinal defense is starting to look pretty formidable. It is, Robert Saleh gets his edge guy and Ruben Bain. I think that's going to happen. I think Bain's going forward to Saleh. I think Saleh is smart enough to just get the best defensive player, not worry about the arm length gate. And then other than that, I think what also jumps out to me is the Rams. The Rams wind up. Where's the Rams? The Rams wind up with Francis. Is it Maui Noah from the Hurricanes? Gigantic offensive lineman. And then the Eagles also wind up with a gigantic offensive lineman in Proctor. So, okay, so that's who's there. Let's look over at or who's gone. Let's look who's there. You got Akeem Mesidor, defensive end, very polished. You got KC Concepcion, who's a very dynamic punt returner. It's funny. The scouting reports say he's fast and he's explosive and he can make big plays, and he had a good year for A&M, but the scouting report says he doesn't catch the ball well, and that always concerns me. Small catch radius. Then there's Brandon Cisse from South Carolina, a corner, very athletic. C.J. Allen, captain of the Georgia defense. Kristen Miller, the big defensive tackle from Georgia, is buddies with Mikael Williams. Colton Hood, Tennessee corner. Ty Simpson, who I think somebody might want to trade up for Ty Simpson. The Niners might, if there's any trade down potential, I think it's for somebody who wants Ty Simpson. And then, there's TJ Parker, defensive end. Now, here's the guys I think they actually like. Ian Acher, I don't think they like. I would. My guess is that he's way too raw, and he's considered a tackle, and they're looking for a guard. But Besantis, I think it would be totally up the Niners' alley. And if you ask me, somebody said, give me 2 or 3 names that you think the 49ers are choosing from at 27. I would probably say the 3 A&M guys: KC Concepcion, the receiver; Chase Besantis, the plug and play left guard, and the pass rusher, Cassius Howell right here, the third, who they have at 61 in this mock draft. So I would imagine they're probably choosing between those guys. What's your thought as we're sitting here looking at what's available at 27? Do you want to look at trade options? Do you want to trade down? Is there some player that fell, Sterling, when you look at this list that you're like, you know what? Didn't think that guy would be there, and he is. Do you want to see more names? I can show you more names of the guys on the board. And there's some really, and this is, I've seen a number of different breakdowns on this draft that people feel like, the player that you get at 15 is not that different than the player you might get at 50. So, and I kind of do agree in this case. I think it's a very beauty in the eye of the beholder type draft. What's your first thought looking at this board and your thoughts on the Niners' needs? Where would you, if you're making a smaller board of this big board, who's in your smaller board?
Yeah, I think first off, let's say the Cardinals are calling up to say, hey, we want Ty Simpson. Then I think you're picking up the phone and saying, what do you want? And you're entertaining the idea. Now, I don't think they're going to do that, going from early round 2 to round 1 to go get Ty Simpson. I don't see a suitor for Ty Simpson in the next, 10 picks or so, 6 picks or so. That said, with the current guys on the board, I'm shocked Akeem Mesidor is still there. I think he is a refined pass rusher. Looking at what San Francisco did in free agency, signing Mike Evans, older player, definitely a kind of maximize your current window for 1 year and see where things go. You brought back Dre Greenlaw for a year. They don't mind kind of having these 1 year, and I wouldn't say boom or bust, but let's go all in for a year, for lack of better terms. And Mesidor is 25 years old, but he's 6'3", 256 pounds, 32 and an 1/8 inch arms. Like, he is one of the more refined pass rushers on the draft board. Now, people say, well, he's older. Okay, that's fine. But let's be honest here. Most guys don't get second contracts in the NFL with the current team that drafts them. So if you're signing a pass rusher when he's 30 years old, that's most guys you get in free agency anyways. And if he's good for you for the next 5 years, who cares how old he is? You get 5 years of a great pass rusher. There are some injury concerns. He had a foot surgery a few years ago, and an elbow injury that's kind of lingered. So there are some medical red flags, but if you want the instant impact, refined kind of day one impactful player, Mesidor's that guy. But then there's the other conversation of, do you want to wait for a receiver and hope somebody falls to 58? That's a really big risk to take in this draft. And you have to kind of ask, or the Niners have to ask, what's more important? Finding a wide receiver to accompany Mike Evans and Ricky Pearsall and the other guys in that room? Or do you have to be desperate enough to maybe overdraft an edge rusher, knowing Bryce Huff's not on your team anymore? So that's kind of the balance you have to kind of figure out, because both those things are needs. But then you have Niner fans who say, go BPA. well, I don't know who the BPA here is exactly, but Denzel Boston's still there. Casey Concepcion's still there. Let me ask you this, Larry. Are you in the mindset of the Niners have to find that true yak threat? Or are you saying, I don't really care about that too much. I just need guys that can stay healthy and have great hands? Because if that's the case, you're not going Chris Bell. You're not going Casey Concepcion. You're going Denzel Boston here and calling it a day.
I think Brock Purdy can do it with a lot of different receivers, and I think they already have a pretty, I think Shanahan has already kind of spoken on this. I mean, they had a lot of youth in that room. The way he talked about Evans and Christian Kirk, about, it's like, it's refreshing to have like men, adults, not just, and I think it really speaks to how there's a big jump in expectations for receivers from what college expects and what Shanahan expects. And he's just not getting it out of Cowing, out of Watkins. These guys couldn't even get on the field. And it's not because they don't block, or they don't run precise routes, or they're not consistent enough, or they're not healthy enough, or it's really just some combination of all those things, really. They haven't gotten out there. And I just feel like, receiver is a boom or bust situation. So I don't think they'll go receiver in the first round. I don't. Okay. I think Casey Concepcion's a nice player. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's really a nice player, and he's very explosive. And I think he'd be a very good weapon in Kyle's system, because I do think he could play all over the place. But I think small catch radius. Yeah. I don't think he has great hands. He fights the ball. He had 7 drops.
Yeah, 10% drop rate the last 2 seasons. Not great.
And he's got a small catch radius. That's a bigger thing, because you got to put it right there, and he's still going to drop it. And he's not a true burner per se. I mean, there's faster guys. I just like other guys a little bit better in this draft than Casey Concepcion, especially with all the other talent on the board. So
sure,
I wouldn't go the wide receiver route. I mean, looking at this list, if you're saying guess along with them, I would say Mesidor could be attractive. Yeah. Here's the thing. These two guys right here, CJ Allen and Kristen Miller. Why was John Lynch at the Georgia Pro Day? He was at the Georgia Pro Day, I think, to see one of these two guys. I don't think he was thinking he was going to get Monroe Freeling, and I don't think he would go to a pro day just for some late round guys. You might, but I think he was probably real interested in these two guys. CJ Allen has some Patrick Willis vibes. I mean, he's not Patrick Willis, but he's a great tackler. He's fast. He's instinctive. I think he's a pretty good football player. There's some stiffness in his workout, but I mean, he's a football player. He's not a perfect athlete. There is some stiffness in his. I don't know if he'll be a great pass coverage player. He's not Fred Warner. Okay. But then there's Kristen Miller, who's not a big sack guy, but man, he's a very impressive defensive tackle. I mean, you're talking about motor, 6'4", 320, strong as hell, healthy, and he's real close to Mikael Williams. And I just, I got to think that the Niners go defensive tackle a lot. I could see him being on that list. Mayoko said he thinks it's going to be Cassius Howell. Mayoko's probably right. I think that, there has been some talk this week that they may go offensive guard because that's a start, it's a plug and play position. That guy's going to come in and start. That they may go offensive guard at 27. And then you're looking at this group right here: Besantis, Pregnon, Rutledge, Dunker. I'll say I like Rutledge. He's a brawler, tough guy. Pregnon, I don't like as much, even though he looks awesome. I mean, he definitely looks the part. I mean, he's like central casting. Dunker and Besantis, I think, are the two best of this group. I love Wee Woo, but he's more of a late round. He's more of a third round, fourth round guy. I love Wee Woo, but Besantis is a mauler in the run game, and he's tough. He grades out highly. He was good all year. I'm sure they've had good reports on him across the board. He's big and strong and tenacious and nasty. He's a really good, plug and play, ready to start guard.
So you think they would go guard after signing 3 veteran guards in free agency? And we know what they
I don't think they'll go guard here, but if they
Okay.
do, it's Besantis or Dunker, I think.
Well, I just think about what they've done in previous years, right? They drafted Colton McKivitz in round 5, and now they signed him to 2 contract extensions. Pooney, who they got in round 3, like it feels like they're okay drafting interior guys, or at least they believe in the development of their offensive linemen compared to drafting guys, unless they are true game changers. Do you see anybody on the board on the offensive line that you think is a true game changer on day one? Because that could make them take one of these guys.
I think Besantis is a powerhouse. I really do. I think he moves people at the line of scrimmage. I like him a lot as a guard. I think he's ready to roll. Now, Ian Acher didn't play until junior college, and the film is all over the place, and he looks amazing, then he looks terrible, and I just look at a situation where he played he played right tackle as a junior, he played left tackle this year. He's barely played any football at all, and now you're going to ask him in his first year in the NFL. He's kind of a slow processor as far as because he's so young in the sport. You're going to ask him to move from outside to inside, where things happen that much faster, where you have to be a real technician, and he's not. And you're going to ask him to play a left guard when he's never played, left guard ever. So and then if you don't ask him to play left guard, what are you going to waste your first round pick not playing this year because he's not as good as Colton McKivitz? So what I mean? It's I don't see. I think they'll go tackle. I think they might go tackle or guard, but I think it's going to be in like round 4. I could see Isaiah World out of Oregon in the 4th round. I think Austin Barber out of Florida, Jude Bowery, Boston College, J.C. Davis, Illinois, Keegan Trost, Missouri, even Markel Bell from Miami. He's just a freaking monster.
He's massive.
Emil Wagner, Travis Burke. I like this tackle market on day 3. There's a bunch of guys. There's really a group of guys. Rucci from Penn State. So I just think they might go offensive line, but it probably will be, if they go offensive line early, I think it's guard, and it's Besantis or Dunker. If it was me, I'd go with that Wee Woo in like the 4th round. So that takes us away from guard. The other guard that I think is a really great steal in this draft, if you go way, way down the list, I like both Cam Newberry from Alabama, who's a gigantic guard. I mean, you're talking about 6'4", 330. I like him. I mean, as a developmental guard, just a gigantic body, strong guy. And then Kobe Baines from Kansas isn't bad, But the other guy on this list, where is it? Yeah, Micah Morris. Micah Morris from Georgia had a great 10-yard split, like 170. Had a great workout. Didn't allow a sack in 3 years. Micah Morris, I think that's an interesting player as well for the Georgia Bulldogs, and that's a day 3. That's a late day 3 offensive lineman. So you don't have to go offensive line here, I guess is the point. Let's look at all. Yeah, so Mesidor's the top guy on the board there. But I don't know. I mean, to me, the thing about this is you always got to look at the reality is that a lot of these guys are going to bust. And then if you got to sit there and go, well, what are the flaws? And do you think, the flaws will overwhelm them? You got to kind of, and the thing with Mesidor is just that, he's very productive at the collegiate level, but he doesn't have super special traits. And he did benefit from being opposite Bain. And he's an older player, like 25. Now that might be a positive because he might be ready to step in and play right away. Kristen Miller's downfall is that, even though he looks awesome, he's only had like 2 career sacks. So in a lot of ways, he's kind of like Mikell all over again, right? He's a good-looking defensive lineman that just from Georgia that doesn't really sack the quarterback. So that would be a little bit of a concern. So like every one of these guys has some issue. Denzel Boston, I don't think, I'm kind of wondering about Denzel Boston really as a route runner. He definitely gets high points to football. But my point is there's a lot of bust potential with a lot of these guys. So I would try to think more safely. And to me, the safe thing to do is either stay where you're at 27 or move down the board a little bit backwards and take I would take either one of these corners. Chris Johnson from San Diego State, who's just a very solid prospect. He's big, he's fast. He was a very good corner this year for San Diego State. If you want a bigger corner. D'Angelo Pons from Indiana, who's just, I don't care. I mean, he's better than Upton Stout, and Upton Stout's the best defensive back the Niners have. Like, I guarantee you he's better than Upton Stout. And Stout's damn good. So, I mean, that right there might be the route to go, just because of the certainty of Pons. I mean, he's just he tested great. He played great. Heck, if that guy's 2 inches taller, there's no way he's there at 27. And the 2 inches in height probably doesn't mean that much at the end of the day. Darrell Green was 5'8". He's in the Hall of Fame. So, also this kid, Keith Abney from Arizona State's an amazing cover corner and super feisty. Keontae Scott, is a great player. Keontae Scott reminds me of Brian Branch. And if it was me, I would trade back a few spots and take Keontae Scott because I think Keontae Scott's is a star. I mean, I don't know what he at worst, he's a slightly undersized free safety, but I mean, he'd be a great free safety. I think he'd be a Pro Bowler. He's really good against the run. He makes tons of plays. He ran 4.25. He's got a 43-inch vertical. He tested amazing. He plays amazing. And he can play a lot of different positions, including what is becoming the most difficult position in football, which is that nickel corner. And you got to have a great nickel player. This guy reminds me of kind of a better coverage version of Brian Branch from Detroit. So I think I might do that. I think I might either go San Diego State, Chris Johnson, D'Angelo Pons, or Keontae Scott and go defensive back. Lock up your secondary with a great DB. If I'm going pass rusher, I think I would just go Cassius Howell. I mean, I saw a list today of the last 10 SEC defensive players of the year. It's a pretty damn good list. It's Will Anderson. It's there's lots of good players there.
Do the
Sertan. I mean,
do the 29-inch arms scare you though?
Yeah, because he could potentially get engulfed if he doesn't win initially. Yeah, that does concern me. But I mean, he's he's so great at creating space. Yeah, with and he's just this is an awesome pass rusher. I mean, this guy's a tremendous pass rusher. So I think he's got moves and he's got counters and he's got nuanced moves. I mean, I saw him do some things that I thought, wow, I don't know if I've ever seen anybody do that. I mean, he's really electric. He can create a lot of space with just his hands. His hands and feet are all tied perfectly together. He's just a great player, and he's a technician is what he is. He's a technician with just a crazy ankle flexing kind of ability where the most amazing thing about Cassius Howell is after he dips to the quarterback or gets his hands on you and gets around you, it's how fast he gets from that point to the quarterbacks on the ground. I mean, he's just an absolute from the point he turns the corner to the quarterback being on the ground. It's got to be as fast as almost anybody I've ever seen. It's like he reminds me in that way a little bit of there's a Von Miller element to his game. He's a dynamic speed rusher. Dynamic.
So it sounds like at least you trying to predict what the Niners are going to do are leaning towards defense and on the edge.
I am. And in this setup, my debate here would be really a threefold. Today at the Illinois Pro Day, Gabe Yakus at 261 pounds ran like a 170 10-yard split as part of a 4.6 140. And that at 260 pounds is absolutely blistering out of the stance. And he is 6'4", 260, Jared Verse like size, great crazy bend, former wrestler, super productive, very athletic. So Yakus, even though it's listed as 51 here, I could definitely see the Niners going Yakus. And then there's Zion Young, who is, he looks, if it was me, I might have a hard time passing on Zion Young. Why? Because I just think I see a lot of Charles Haley and Zion Young.
Do the DUI concerns bother you at all? He had the DUI, he refused the breath analyzer, and he has a court date due soon. Does that scare you off at all? Or are you saying, it was a young guy's mistake and he'll learn from that?
It's like we've seen this movie before. It's the Alden Smith story, maybe.
Yeah, Missouri.
So,
it's all the same.
Yeah, I gotta meet the kid and figure that out. Sometimes that's nothing, and sometimes that's everything. And it's like I'd have to. That's the downside of not getting to meet the player. But I would definitely be choosing probably between Yakus and Zion Young and Cassius Howell. There's also Malachi Lawrence from Central Florida who flies off the edge and is really, really fast. I mean, in a lot of ways, he's kind of the prototype as far as size and speed. He really is impressive physically. Some of the speed is amazing there.
If we're narrowing it down to edge rushers, let's say of the group we currently have on the board right now, it's Mesidor, it's Howell, it's Parker, it's Lawrence, it's Young, it's Yakus. Why would you not take Mesidor of that group, knowing he's probably the best one, albeit really the only knock on him is the injury concerns and his age. But if age doesn't bother you too much, why would you not just take him and plug him in on third downs next to Michael?
Because I don't see, here's the thing, because to win on the edge, and this is the edge, right? To win on the edges of a defense, whether that's the defensive line edge or the corner, you have to have a special physical athletic trait, and he doesn't have it. He's got a good motor, and he'll be effective. But for a first-round guy, I'm looking for somebody who could potentially be a star. And I think you got to have that extra gear, or you got to have something. Like Yakus has great bend and strength and power and explosion. Zion Young's got real length, and he's kind of like the baddest guy there is. Lawrence flies off the edge. Howell has the combination. He's like a technician, but with speed. And he's like, some of these other guys are pretty good too, by the way. Danny Dennis Sutton is more rushed out of a 2-point stance at Penn State. He's a little bit more raw. The guy that I really love too, the Niners worked out Romello Height from Texas Tech. He's very, very lean. But he can get the edge and flatten to the quarterback, and he's really, really good at it. But he's more like a Leonard Floyd, 5-man front situational rusher. I don't think he's definitely not an every down guy. He's more of a sub package guy. But the guy Derek Moore from Michigan is really, when you look at it closely and you start watching that film, I mean, he's pretty damn good. Have you seen Derek Moore?
I have. It's a power profile off the charts. Are you looking to complement Michael? Michael's the power, right? He doesn't have this vast pass rushing skill set. It is bull rush, bull rush, bull rush. Try to compress that pocket and move the quarterback around, feeding him into Bosa and hopefully Odigizua. Are you trying to complement him on third downs with the speed rusher? Because if you are, then it feels like we're narrowing it down to Hal and Lawrence. But if you aren't worried about that too much and are okay maybe having some redundancy of just a power guy on the edge, then you're leaning towards more Zion Young and Gabe Yakus. What do you think San Francisco will do? I think they want that speed rusher. I think Raheem Morris wants the speed guy to help Michael on third downs. And once the pocket breaks down, that guy cleans things up, which is why I'd probably lean Hal if we're doing a predictive mock draft. But what do you think they want next to Michael? A power guy or a speed guy in 2026?
I think they want the speed guy because I think the speed guy is what they had in Bryce Huff, and now he's gone. And I think also the speed guy stretches the defense. And I also think if you look at who's going to make this decision, this is going to be a big part. I think fast forward to draft day. They the Niner war room. Now we're looking inside. Now we're looking at the decision makers. It's going to be a big part of Raheem Morris. Raheem Morris is going to be a big star in that room. And so he's going to get what he wants. Last year, he took both Billy Bowman and Xavier Watts, two really good safeties, but he also took Jalen Walker and James Pierce. And what are they? They're outside rushers who are 245 pounds, who are fast, really electric, So I think that it's likely that he probably wants a Cassius Howell. That would be my guess. I think Cassius Howell makes a lot of sense. I think the speed rusher makes a lot of sense for the 49ers. Now, it could be Yakus. And I like Yakus because Yakus is really, really strong. And I know a lot of people don't know that name as well, but he's a hell of a player. I want to show you, though, this Derek Moore clip because Derek Moore is ridiculous. This is a ridiculous highlight. This is an unbelievable. You've probably seen this, but this is amazing. He's going up against Markel Bell. Markel Bell is a house. And here's how this goes. Dude, if I was Derek Moore, I would have like 10 TVs in my house and I would just have this play just like this on a loop.
That would have been my last rep of the Senior Bowl. I would have just flown home after that and said, I'm done. You guys saw enough.
What's better, the click or the ooh? Oh, dude. All day, dude. That is great. That is phenomenal.
You mentioned that Raheem Morris will be a big part of the draft day and the draft war room, and that's true. But do you think there is, I don't want to say hesitation, but knowing Saleh just left after 1 year, knowing Raheem probably wants to be a head coach again, whether it's next year or 2 years, I don't know. We'll never know until it actually happens. But do you think maybe there is some hesitation of like, we don't want to let that guy pick at 27 because he may not be here in 1 year? And we might go back to the wide nine and running a 4-3 defense in 2027 if he's not. Is that a concern at all? Or are you saying Shanahan and Lynch are like, Morris, go ahead and get your guy?
Well, I mean, I think Shanahan always believes that he can find guys that fit inside his system on the offensive side of the ball, and they can fudge that because he can find guys that he can see can fit his system. Backs, receivers, linemen, tight ends, you name it. I think on defense, I think there's a belief that you need real athletes. and that you have to invest real draft capital. So I think it's kind of that's kind of I think the overall belief. You didn't see them try to fake last year. It was like, here comes McHale, here comes West, here comes Collins. Here come they all of a sudden it was like they're going to invest in some defensive front seven guys. And I think they need to do more of that, to be honest. Last year they got some run defenders. This year they need pass defenders. They need pass a speed rusher. I mean, if you say, what do they need? They need a speed rusher. They need one linebacker. And they need a couple special DBs, in my opinion, on defense. They've got Bosa now inside. If you could add two defensive linemen, one kind of situational rusher, and one edge rusher, and then maybe one really athletic, fast stack backer, and then a couple special DBs. And if you could, to me, you do that on defense. And then offensively, you have some other needs, right? Because you still need a tight end, because you don't know what you're going to have with George, and that I think is a need. You need a starting left guard, and I think they're going to try to address that in this draft. And then as part of a competition with these other guys, because they already have other guys that can compete. And then I think they also need a great receiver. A truly great receiver. So why don't we go back? We'll go back to our little mock here real quick. And should we give him Cassius Howell? Should we give him Yakis, Zion Young? Let's give him an edge rusher.
I think Howell probably makes the most sense of what we've known and learned so far in the draft process.
We'll give him Howell, and let's just see where this board comes up in round 2 and see who's on the board. Because in some of the round 2 mocks that I'm looking at, guys like Pons and Keontae Scott are there in round 2. And if that's the case, I think those guys are great players. Chris Bell just went. I think there's reason to believe, that they may have liked Chris Bell. Zion Young's gone. Jacob Rodriguez is gone. Jeremy Bernard, Chris Johnson. There's a lot of good players coming off the board. Caleb Tiernan, Malachi Lawrence, Yakis just went. All right, here they come. So R. Mason Thomas, Lee Hunter just went. All right, so now we go. They took Cassius Howell. They've got the edge rusher. So now we'll kind of take a look at all the options. So now, if you go to all, yes, D'Angelo Pons is there. Keontae Scott is there. And then Delp, if you want Delp, if you would believe that Delp's great. I also think Ted Hurst is going to be a great player. Ted Hurst, I could go Ted Hurst with the receiver here. Jadarian Price is there. Something tells me, and Jennings Dunker is there. And to me, this is an interesting spot in the draft. And I saw the Kuiper, Matt Miller, Jordan Reed, who was the fourth, and Field Yates. They did a 4-person 3-round mock draft, and I wanted to look at it. And they had Caleb Tiernan coming to the Niners in the second round at this pick, 58. But I wanted to see who they had on the board still at 58, and sure enough, they had D'Angelo Pons. They had Keontae Scott. I think they had Ted Hurst. Jadarian Price, I think they had off the board, but they had Jennings Dunker. And they had Stowers, who Kilgore, the safety, I think is going to be a great player. So you got a lot of different directions you can go here. I do think you need a couple special DBs. I would run that card in and take Pons because I'm a big Pons fan. But I also love Keontae Scott. I think Keontae Scott was one of the best players in the college football playoff. And he's a difference maker, And if I really believe that he's Brian Branch, how do I not take him at 58? And there's everything about Scott was super special. And then he tested 4.25 and 43.5-inch vert. Wow. So maybe he's just really, really damn good. What are you thinking here? If you go edge rusher, what do you look at? Do you look at the left guard and say that's the need? Do you look at the receiver? If you're looking at the guard, Jennings Dunker and my guy Wee Woo. And then if you're looking at a tackle, Isaiah World, Crown over. And if you're looking at a receiver, There's Ted Hurst, Jacoby Lane. Bryce Lance actually has some interesting traits. Zachariah Branch is Cliff Branch's relative and very physically dominant, even though he's a little player. Georgia kind of misused him. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is.
You could have a running back too. I think there's a real belief here that the Niners want to not replace Juice, but I think they would like to get themselves a RB2. And if they get to right here, they could believe that Jadarian Price is their RB2.
Yeah, he's a great player. I do have questions though. So D'Angelo Pons, I think, is a hell of a football player. Like, his height did not affect the way he played at all. He looked like a dominant player, whether he was under 6 foot, he was near 6 foot, or he was near 5'9", right? I don't know if the Niners want to have 2 cornerbacks below 5'10". I know Raheem Morris will run out there 2 nickelbacks, and that's fine with me. I would like to believe one of them, if they do 2 nickelback sets, will be a safety, but I don't know if you can have 2 below 5 foot or 5'9", defensive backs on the same field at the same time. Like, that's a concern.
I think that's a fair concern. I mean, it absolutely is, especially in a sport where teams are running the ball and you got to be able to stop the run. So, and then, that kind of makes me wonder, what about a guy like Caleb Banks? I mean, Caleb Banks, to me, I know he's got foot problems, but man, this is you could have the best player in the draft, and this guy could be one of the 5 or 6 best players in the NFL, or this could be a guy who never really plays. I mean, this is a difference-making player. There's just absolutely no question about that. He's 6'6", he's 330, he's from Detroit, broke out this year, or broke out in 24, 4 sacks, 7 TFLs. But I mean, looking at this guy at the Senior Bowl, 6'6", 3 1/4, 35-inch arms, and he just has movement that's just unbelievable at this size. Just an absolute beast of a defensive tackle. Could be a really, really dominant player if the foot checks out. It's like, if you draft this guy, there's a chance that the foot doesn't check out, he doesn't play, and you look bad. That's your 2nd-round pick. But if you draft this guy, and this guy becomes the next Chris Jones, you might win the Super Bowl. So that's a big, name sitting there, and you don't have a lot of time to talk it over. And then Oscar Delp. What's Oscar Delp? Some people see George Kittle. George Kittle was underutilized as a receiver at Iowa. He was very strong in the run game, and he ran 4.5. This guy ran 4.48 and didn't have a lot of production, just like George didn't have a lot of production. But do you look at that as a positive and say, you know what, he's great, he's just he's low mileage because they didn't figure out how to use him, or does that concern you?
I think Oscar Delp is incredible. I don't even know if he gets to 58. That's how good I think he is. This tight end class is pretty deep. Now, there's a lot less of the inline tight end type I think San Francisco would want if they're drafting somebody. So I think you lean towards more of the Sam Rouches, the Marlon Kleins of the world. The one guy I do like is Jack Endries, but I often wonder, when does Raheem Morris put his foot down? I know Matt Barrow said that he likes, or the team likes, the current crop of safeties. I don't know how you walk into next year with the same guys. It just doesn't make sense. Jair Brown was terrible last year. The Marquis Siegel flash, but was more overwhelmed than not in many of the games he played in. And Mustafa's coming into a pretty big year 3. And we know Raheem Morris values safety. So if I'm the Niners, I'm kind of waiting for Raheem Morris to raise his hand and say, when am I getting my safety? And if I'm Raheem Morris, I'm almost pounding the table for Bud Clark or Zachy Wheatley of Penn State. Now, I'm not saying do it here, but those are the 2 guys I like a lot. Bud Clark is tremendous.
I like Kilgore, though. Have you seen Kilgore? I mean, I think Kilgore is, I think, better because Kilgore has the coverage ability of a corner, and he hits like a backer. South Carolina gets these guys. And, last year it was E-Man Worry. This year, this kid Kilgore I went down a rabbit hole and watched him for about 30, 40 minutes earlier this week. Go watch this guy. This guy steps up in the hole and starches people. And then he's got coverage ability deep down the field where he's making plays and batting balls away deep down the field like a corner. I mean, he's really impressive. Jalen Kilgore, I don't know let me see what his testing was. His film the other day was very, very impressive. At 6'1", 219 pounds. Yeah, he's taking reps at boundary corner, nickel, box safety, and field safety. His versatility, they say, is a testament to his intelligence, his vision, his football IQ. He's had 3 TFLs, 5 interceptions, 5 PBUs in 2024. So he had a breakout year in 24, followed it up this year with two picks and 10 pass breakups. Yeah, I mean, to me, that's, I mean, all these guys are good. I got no problem with Bud Clark either. Bud Clark's a really good cover guy. He's just not the hitter. This guy is. This guy's more like this guy's going to smoke somebody. I mean, he's going to absolutely destroy them, but then he's also going to cover somebody on the next play. So I like Kilgore's coverage. He's like, and this kid's from Eatonton, Georgia. I mean, the state of Georgia just produces the greatest athletes. It's crazy. So let's just go. We'll go with any of them. We'll go Clark here, but either way, Kilgore, whatever. I think let's just go safety there, and let's just see what's on the board in this 4th round when the 49ers have 4 picks. Because I don't know how you feel, but I think in a draft like this, don't you almost have to go best player available when you get to the 4th round?
Yeah, you think that, but the Niners seemingly always draft for need, no matter what round position. If they need it and they haven't filled it yet, that's coming off the board. It's a weird way to do things. I wouldn't do it that way.
Well, right now we got a safety and we've got an edge rusher.
Right. So now you're thinking of wide receiver, right? The team needs one. Or you're thinking guard.
Wide receiver, guard, maybe running back if there was a Christian McCaffrey,
Yeah, it's just a terrible running back class.
I know. I like that kid Claiborne, though. And though they say he's kind of a circus as a guy, but he is an unbelievable fast running back. Austin Barber just went. So now Jalen Farmer just went. Some of these, it's hard watching. Kalon Black, a good running back, just went from Indiana. Niners are coming up here on the board. Malachi Fields. Romello Height just went. Oh, that could have been their guy. All right, so let's look at the best on the board here now in the 4th round. This is pick 127. What do you think here? You want to look at, let's take a look at guard. What's at guard right now? Bo Stevens.
Yeah.
Bo Stevens. Jaden Roberts from Alabama. Cooper is not a fit. He's just not a scheme fit. He's more of a gap scheme guy. Jeremiah Wright, I think, is a very, very good offensive line prospect. He is super wide. Auburn is an underrated offensive line factory. And I like Jeremiah Wright. I really do. I think he's a very underrated. To me, he's reminds me a little bit of Will Hernandez from Arizona. Just such a wide body. Armaj Reed Adams from Texas A&M is a road grader, man. He is a big time run blocker. Slow, but a gigantic run blocker. And then Micah Morris is there. So there's definitely some offensive guards there. Bo Stevens. A lot of people have Bo Stevens coming to the Niners.
Yep.
This guy is another guy, I think, with a wrestling background. Now, he's had problems, but as far as he's had some injuries and he's got really short arms, sub 32-inch arms. A lot of people think this guy might be a center in the future, but he is kind of a brawler. He is athletic. He was a high school wrestler. And Iowa coaches him up right. There's no doubt about that. So that's the offense. That's the offensive guard. Now the receiver position. What do you think here? You got Kevin Coleman from Missouri, who's a burner. There's no question he's a burner. You got Deion Burks from Oklahoma. Now Deion Burks, we should talk about him for just a second. Nobody lit up the combine like Deion Burks. He had 26 reps of 225 as a 5'10 receiver. He ran incredibly well. He tested off the charts. Strong, fast, super athletic. Didn't have tons of production. But was, he played with Mateer. So Deion Burks, you got Eli Heidenreich from Navy. A lot of people like Eli Heidenreich. Some people like Stribling from Ole Miss. Josh Cameron from Baylor, I think might be a really good pick in the 4th round. He's just a big, physical, rumbling receiver. The LSU guys all have to be looked at. Aaron Anderson is very fast. Downfield receiver. Jeff Caldwell from Cincinnati ran 4.31 at 6'4", 216 pounds. I think he'd be a guy I'd want to look at. Tyron Montgomery from John Carroll had a tremendous Senior Bowl. I mean, one of the best Senior Bowls. And there's other guys here. Xavion Thomas runs well. Barryon Brown, super fast. Reggie Virgil from Texas Tech is a downfield threat as a receiver. So there's a lot of guys here for sure. Let's go all. Let's who's the best players on the board across the board. I like Harold Perkins, but I don't think Harold Perkins is a stacked linebacker. I think he's some kind of a special teamer. He's kind of like what Harold Perkins is? He's kind of like Nick Emanwari. He's not really the most instinctive guy, but he is very, very fast. I don't know if you saw his workout. Perkins is one of the fastest linebackers in the country.
Do you think they're actually even going to consider taking a linebacker? Now they have like 9 guys in that room, and they have Winters and Bethune and Wallow and a bunch of guys behind Fred and Dre that can fill in and be somewhat adequate or at least young and are unproven. Nick Martin.
It's hard to say. It's like we're in this positionless time of football, and it seems like as many elite athletes as you can get, you want. Harold Perkins Jr. is an elite athlete. There's no doubt about that. And he closes space. Now, what is he? Is he a safety? Is he a strong safety? Is he free safety? Is he a linebacker? Is he a weak side backer? Is he a strong side back? What is he exactly? Is he a blitzer? Is he a defensive end? It's hard to really say exactly what he is, other than he's just a tremendous athlete. So he played that star position at LSU. I mean, I think if you're a great coach, you can get star athletes and figure out how to use them. And he's a star athlete. I mean, he really is. But there's other players on the board here too. I mean, Caleb Proctor, this Seth McGowan from Kentucky is a really dynamic running back who's 220 pounds. There's other guys. Anthony Lucas from USC is a dangerous edge rusher.
Yeah, I think Kevin Coleman Jr. from Missouri is probably the best player on the board for me right here. At least a receiver. You didn't get a guy in the 1st round. You didn't get a guy in round 2. And, the Niners like who they have in that room via name value. Mike Evans, if he's healthy, he'll be great, hopefully. You have Ricky Pearsall. If that turns into something, I mean, we all hope it does. That would be great. But you want to talk about a guy that fits the Niners, fits Kyle Shanahan. You have no idea what Jacob Cowan's giving you next year, if anything at all. Jordan Watkins played like 9 snaps and might see the field next year. We'll see. I hope he does too, for obvious reasons. But Kevin Coleman Jr. is tremendous. 5'11", 22 years old. He can separate. He had only a 3.4% drop rate last year at Missouri. He's a guy that just gives everything he's got every single play. You want guys that have high effort. Like Jawan Jennings isn't the fastest guy, but there's so much effort behind his strides, where he lowers his helmet, he fights for extra yards. And Kevin Coleman's not Jawan Jennings by any means, but for a 5'11" guy, the dude packs a punch. Like, he's under 180 pounds, and he's still fighting and pushing out defensive backs to gain 1 to 2, 3 more yards because he just doesn't give up on any single play. And I think, for a guy that will play slot for you, knowing you don't really have a slot receiver on the roster, unless you consider Christian Kirk that's proven, I don't see why you wouldn't get Kevin Coleman and just be like, hey, you can run routes around probably Jordan Watkins and Cowing, and I can see a place where he's the 4th receiver walking in the next year if it all works out for him.
I like that. I like that. That's a good one. We'll go with him. Now they got another 4th-round pick. I really do love this kid Caleb Proctor from Southeast Louisiana because he's just such a great pass rusher. But you know what? I also think that Nick Singleton is just too good a value here. He's just such a big, fast running back, and if they're really looking for somebody who can do some of the things that CMC does, then you need a special player. I mean, you need a special athlete. And Nick Singleton is 230 pounds and still runs very fast.
Do you see any redundancy in Singleton and Garendo? Guys that are fast but have really bad vision, but can beat you in the passing game.
Yeah, but I think Singleton's got more to him than Garendo. But that's a good point. That is a good point. There is some redundancy there. Let me see what other running backs are there. Henby, Adam Randall, Jam Miller. I could see Jam Miller being a very popular player for them. Why? Because he blocks and he's only fumbled like once ever. And that's Shanahan. He loves that. Tight end. There's Jack Endries. There's some good tight ends there. I think Sam Roush makes a lot of sense here, to be honest. I think he's a big, strong run blocker. They need a smart player at tight end. He is a smart player. I'll go with him there. And now you have 2 more. You have picks back to back here. And if you look at what you've done, you've got an edge rusher, you've got a safety, you got a wide receiver, you got a tight end. So you're probably looking for a left guard, and a D tackle, a linebacker. What else? Or tight end? What would you want your last 2 picks to be? You got to.
I think you have to go left guard at some point. So I don't know who's on the board still, but I think left guard makes a lot of sense. Bo Stevenson's still there. Would love that for them.
Bo Stevens.
Probably. Yeah, I just think he fits. Iowa runs a lot of wide zone. Shanahan loves that stuff. I think he moves well. He's 6'5", so a bigger body guy, albeit shorter arm. It's not going to be a big factor in playing inside. And you at least want competition in that room. And then for the last pick, I would either go to defensive line because you don't have much depth behind Collins, Osa, and West. It's just kind of a bunch of I don't knows. So.
Yeah, and you got this is a great board right here. I mean, if this is really the way the board was, man, you'd almost want to see if you could add another pick. And I'd almost see if I could trade back, see if I could get 2 picks, and I get 2 of these guys. A lot of people like Dominique Orange from Iowa State. I'm not
big citrus,
big citrus, yeah. But I like Caleb Proctor. He's a great mover. I mean, he's a tremendous mover. Rayshon Benny, I think from Michigan, is a really good player, and Devin Eastern from Minnesota is big and quick, very talented. The A&M kid Regis is a tremendous athlete. And Xavion Harris from Ole Miss is 6'8", 330, and he's kind of fast. He's got some speed to him. He's got a little bit of a pass rusher. He's got kind of a weird, terrible build where he carries a lot of his weight up high. He's got kind of spindly legs. But, man, when he gets rolling towards the quarterback, he's actually a pass rusher at like 350 pounds. There's DeMonte Capehart from Clemson, great athlete, and James Thompson from Illinois, who had a fantastic all-star game. Now, this guy is really good, 6'5", 295 from Cincinnati, Ohio. James Thompson. Saw this guy in one of the all-star games, and I was like, whoa, this guy's dominating, absolutely dominating. So there's some badass dudes on the defensive tackle spot that you could still choose from. Who do you like out of that group? Is there one that stands out? Tim Keenan from Alabama is a gigantic, thick body as well. He's huge and strong. There's a lot of options here.
Yeah, I do like Big Citrus. Now, I think a lot of his problems are coachable, which is good. It's not an athletic problem. He's a big guy. He's very powerful. Also a big fan of Nick Barrett, 6'3", 315 pounds, only a 1-year starter, not much of a pass rusher, but, he's built like stout. He's just thick. I don't know how else to word it. He's dense, I guess is probably the word to use. He's got strength out the freaking wazoo. He can take on double teams, high floor player, and I think, you lost Kalia Davis, you lost Jordan Elliott, and yeah, you got Osa in there, but again, you don't have any like high floor players that if someone gets hurt, which they always do in the NFL, can fill in for you. And I think Nick Barrett has untapped potential in that regard. I would have loved Missouri's Chris McClellan. I think he's fantastic. I think he is so underrated. He's not on the board, unfortunately. But I think he is I don't want to say a star player, but he's a starter or starting player waiting to happen. I think he's fantastic. But of the current crop, I would go with somebody like Nick Barrett, simply because you don't have anybody behind the guys you currently have.
Yeah, no, there you go. So we'll go Nick Barrett there, and to finish it out. Now, of course, this draft is it's going super slow. So tomorrow, sometime it will end, and we'll print out our thing. But we have no more picks. So overall, that's not a bad draft though. Cassius Howell, Bud Clark, Kevin Coleman, Sam Roush, Bo Stevens, Nick Barrett. I'd be very pleased with that draft if I were the 49ers. You've got two guys to your defensive front. Now, I will say this, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I think overall, when I look at all the different drafts, it's when you see the Niners in a scenario like this, where right now they have 6 picks and they finish with 6 picks, there's more work to be done. It's like it would be. I know there are a lot of people that think this draft is really thin, but to me, I do think you could get some really good players even after the draft. When I was looking at the thing that jumped out to me this week, when I was looking at the ESPN, in fact, maybe I'll share the screen. I can call that up. ESPN did a Matt Miller 7-round mock draft. Did you see that one? And,
I did not know.
Yeah, and in this mock draft, I mean, and he did a nice job with it. But in his mock draft, he had guys in the 7th round. I mean, he had like Zane Durant in the 7th round. He had like some really good players in the 7th round, like 5 or 6 really good players in the 7th round. The Owiwu, the offensive lineman from Oklahoma, he was there in the 7th round. Zane Durant was there in the 7th round. And there were several other really good players there in the 7th round. So I get the feeling that, once you get past day 2, it's really anybody's guess. And it's kind of beauty in the eye of the beholder. It's really hard to say exactly, what's going to be there, who's going to be taken. I feel like it's largely it's hugely speculative. And there could be some really, really good players that, you think are going in the 4th or 5th round that wind up there as undrafted free agents. I think that's very realistic. One of the things I wanted to throw your way, I think is kind of interesting. Well, there we go. We got the board up here. Let's see. There we go. Move it up. So yeah, Cassius Howell, Bud Clark, Kevin Coleman, Sam Roush, Bo Stevens, Nick Barrett. You get a pass rusher. I think Clark probably starts. Coleman gives you some speed at receiver. Roush definitely is going to play a lot as a rookie with Kittle being out. Stevens is in that mix for sure for playing time. Definitely will probably be the maybe the replacement for Brendel in 27. And then Barrett, as you said, goes into their D-line rotation. I think it's he's a guy that they could definitely use on their defensive front. And I think overall that's not bad. But like to me, you're going to still need about 10 other guys. And you're going to have to really still go for undrafted free agents. And we'll see, who's going to be there. That's always, it's always questionable. Is there some player as we're getting closer to the draft that you're getting like really fired up about, that you're like, you know what, the more I watch this player, the more I think, you know what, this is the guy I really think the 49ers ought to go after?
Yeah, I think I kind of already brought him up. That's Kevin Coleman. I think that Coleman. like we talked about, what does San Francisco do in the first round? And if they are, let's say, hard set on getting a defensive player, and guys like Elijah Surratt, Bernard from Alabama is not there on the board, I could see Kyle in his mind thinking of, I don't have to scheme this kid open. And that makes Brock Purdy's life easier. It makes my life easier as a play caller. I think he's somebody who can be interchangeable with Ricky Pearsall in his role in the offense. Now knowing you have Mike Evans playing X for you. So I do think there is some protection if Pearsall gets hurt, but also there is a way where you're running 3-4 receiver sets, and it's Christian Kirk and it's Kevin Coleman and it's Evans and it's Pearsall. And then when Kittle comes back, he's in the mix too. So I think he's a player that if the Niners are not going to go receiver or can't go receiver round 1, round 2, I think Kevin Coleman to me is the best bang for your buck. And I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't even go round 3 or 4. He may go, mid to late 2, because I do think his skill set translates that well to the NFL.
The guy that I've been watching that I love watching him. He's just so electric with the ball in his hands is Damon Claiborne from Wake Forest. Now he's a small running back, but man, I mean, he is dynamic. And I'm looking at the 49ers. There's times where I just feel like all of their, what made Seattle Seattle. I think it's their ability to create explosive plays on offense and their ability to eliminate explosive plays on defense. And I would be looking to copy that formula to some degree. I think the Niners need more explosive playmaking. And I think a guy like Claiborne, who can run to the edges at will, and he's just so electric, there's got to be a way to get somebody like that on the field, even if it was only for 10, 12 snaps a game. I really like what a big play guy he is. The other guy that, the more I watch, I'm like, wow, this guy is really, really impressive, is the receiver, Ted Hurst from Georgia State. And it's like, you know what? This guy is not just a developmental type receiver. This is a very special receiver. I don't know why he's at Georgia State. I don't know why he didn't leave Georgia State, but the way he moves, I would say he's definitely somebody who's going to come into the NFL and make plays. I love Ted Hurst. If he went to Georgia, not Georgia State, I think he goes, 24, 25, something like that in the draft. But because he went to Georgia State, he's going to be there in the 3rd round. And everything that kid does is like, whoa, you got to be kidding me. I really think that's one of the I just didn't expect to see an FCS receiver, do the kinds of things that he does. He makes it look really easy.
Yeah, going to the defense for a second, I think Charles Demings, cornerback from Stephen F. Austin, he's not the biggest guy. He's 6 foot, 190 pounds, but he has 32.25 inch arms. Last year, a 47.2% completion rate allowed, 238 yards, 1 touchdown, 6 PBUs and 4 interceptions last year alone. In his career, 17 PBUs and 9 picks over his career. I think he's somebody that will be there round 4. Now, he does fit more of that kind of cover 3/4 defense, so maybe that kind of scares him off now with Raheem Morris in charge. But I think he's a guy that can play outside if you are hesitant in keeping Renardo Green after this year, or maybe he just kind of falls apart again. Demings can slide in there. And really, if anything, Demings having 270 snaps on special teams, to me, if you can get Darrell Luter Jr. off this roster in any way possible as a backup, sign me up for it. So if you can do that, that's what I do. But there's so much depth where you mentioned, using the UDFA thing to go sign a bunch of guys. But I would say if you can find ways to trade back from 27 or 58 and get more picks in round 3 or even in round 2, even if it's 1 or 2 more picks, like that's the route to go, because there is that sweet spot between, pick 40 and pick 100, where it's like you can get 2 or 3 guys that can start for you on day 1 that can make a massive impact. So I'm there with you in regards to trying to accumulate more picks, especially on day 2.
Yeah. There's just a lot of really good players on day 2. I mean, I was looking at a list of, somebody's favorite prospects in the draft. And one of the guys that I really like is Jayshon Barham from Michigan, who started at Maryland. And he's basically was a stacked backer at Maryland. He was an inside linebacker, but now at Michigan, they've moved him to the edge, and he's, a 245-pound, game upfield force in the, he's just an awesome first step. I mean, he just destroys blocks. He's got great violent hands. The motor is off the charts. 34-inch arms. He's one of those guys. He's 6'3", 240, but with the 34-inch arms, he plays like a bigger player. He plays really, really, really hard. He's just, I as the Niners bring in Raheem Morris, I kind of see this defense starting to evolve with some smaller rushers. And Cassius Howell fits the bill, but if you're looking to, if some reason you go in a different direction early, and you're looking to still get that edge rusher, Jayshon Barham would be a very, very good, second, third round, fourth round edge rusher if you don't go edge rusher early. So he's a guy that really stands out. He just beats his man all the time, and it's just he's fun to watch for sure. Is there a quarterback that you are intrigued by that you think they ought to investigate in this draft? There's, I get the feeling that the 49ers are in that mode of like, hey, we want to bring in a quarterback every year. Hey, you're the team that discovered Brock Purdy. Why wouldn't you, break down the whole draft class and see if you could find something special? You already kind of beat the odds. What do you think? Is there a quarterback that you're intrigued by to bring in this summer?
I mean, not with Mac Jones and Curtis Rourke on the roster. That said, if there are two guys I think the Niners would at least look at or look into, I think it's Cade Klubnik from Clemson, undersized guy, more of a touch passer, kind of a one-read quarterback. But also I do think that you have Luke Altmaier from Illinois. Very same traits, touch passer, plays point guard, doesn't try to do too much. He has smaller hands, which so does Brock Purdy, but his are 9-inch hands. So that's could be a problem for his physical traits, but he plays a boring yet clean brand of football. So I don't think they'll bring in a quarterback, knowing they have who I think they believe to be three quarterbacks that can play football this year necessary, with Jones and Rourke behind Brock Purdy. But for the first time in a long time, it's kind of like quarterback doesn't really need to be addressed. And also, it's one of the worst quarterback classes we've ever seen in the last 20 years. So I'd stay away, really. I'd stay away entirely.
Yeah, I kind of like Gronowski from Iowa. The Missouri State kid's not is pretty interesting, but it does seem kind of like a subpar crop. There's a report, Gary Davenport from Bleacher Report says that if the Niners are not confident in their in-house options at guard, that they ought to explore the veteran Joel Bitonio. Bitonio's 34, and he told reporters he wasn't sure if he's going to ever play again, but he could come back for a 13th season. They graded him out pretty highly last year. And what do you think? I mean, this is a guy that Shanahan knows going back to Cleveland. If you add a guy like Joel Bitonio at left guard, there's one less need that you have going into the draft. Then you don't have to worry about a Chase Besantis or, a guard, and you can focus on defense. What do you think of the idea of going for the veteran offensive guard?
No, it'd be great. I think, Bitonio has a big choice to make. Do you want to come all over to San Francisco and fly across the country and play in a place where half your contract goes to taxes, or you can stay in Ohio and either retire or just waste away protecting for Deshaun Watson or Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel. Now, I do think there should be some allure to playing next to people like Trent Williams and playing across from guys like Nick Bosa and company every single day at practice and then during games. I think trying to get a championship should be what every player wants to do when it's not said and done. That said, I do think the Robert Jones signing, whether good or bad, does kind of take them out of the running. I think they believe Robert Jones can be their left guard if they can't find somebody in the draft, or they believe Robert Jones can beat out that incoming rookie. So I think they're done in free agency. at least until the draft happens. I don't think they're going to sign anybody else. They may go bring in a running back or two veteran guys here or there. But I don't see them adding any starting caliber players from now until maybe the beginning of training camp.
What did you think of them working out the Houston kicker, Ethan Sanchez, at the Houston Pro Day? This kid's really good, by the way. He was a Lou Groza Award semifinalist. He made 21 field goals last year, all Big 12. Eagles, Browns, Niners, Texans, Commanders, Falcons, all showing interest at his Pro Day. Should Eddie Pena? Are the Niners looking for another kicker? What do you make of that?
Yeah, the same offseason in which they signed the kicker to a relatively nice deal, they're going to replace him in the exact same offseason by drafting another one. I don't know why they did it. I'm sure it was just to cover their bases and see what's up in case something happens. There's so many free agent kickers each year, and kicker probably is the most volatile position on anybody's roster because it's just 1 year you're great, 1 year you're bad, and you do want to have some protection behind your guys. So I think it's just more so them covering their bases more than anything, saying, hey, if Pinheiro stinks this year, we know a guy that's a free agent or might get cut during preseason.
By the way, Ryan Fowler, who is a credible source and does have sources, tweets out, the Eagles, Commanders, Falcons, and 49ers have shown extensive interest in Houston kicker Ethan Sanchez. Wow.
What does that mean?
I don't know. But I mean, there's interest, and then there's extensive interest. I can't confirm nor deny anything more than that. But there you go, extensive interest. All right, let's thank our sponsors. We'll hit some of our supers, then we'll bolt for the door. Thanks to Habbas Law. They're a great sponsor of the Krug Show. 1-800 injured Habbas Law. They will fight for your right they will fight for your right to party. No, they they are the best law firm there is, basically, and they do some amazing stuff. And thanks to Habbas Law, because they covered pet adoption fees at the San Jose Animal Care Center on Saturday, March the 28th. Very cool. They're very invested in the community, and I really dig that. Really fired up to be part of the Habbas Law team because they really do an amazing job. So thanks to Habbas Law for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show, and we really appreciate them and all the things that they do. It is cool when you have a sponsor that is invested in the community, and that's Habbas Law. So 1-800 injured, they will fight to make it right is the slogan. Alomar Marina, thank you, Alomar Marina, the voted Sacramento best lunch spot. 15999 Garden Highway. They're open Wednesday through Sunday, 11 through 7, Wednesday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sunday. Try the shrimp tacos, voted best specialty cocktails in Sacramento. Alomar Marina. Also, thank you to Novato Chevrolet. Go see my guy David Corral. He's the man to go see. He will get you a steal of a deal. Tell him that Krug sent you. The only place I will buy a Chevrolet is Novato Chevrolet, family-owned dealership for over 50 years. Friendly staff, great service, Bay Area EV headquarters, awesome dealership, voted top car dealership by Carfax. Thank you to Novato Chevrolet. And also thank you to Pig and a Pickle, of course, the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. All right, let's hit our supers, and we will bolt. We've got this one from Stefan. He says, would you rather have CD Lamb or St. Brown? Oh, St. Brown all day.
Okay. As an Oklahoma fan, I think I would take CD, but that's a personal thing.
Yeah. Has CD ever caught 100 balls?
I'd like to think so. Maybe not last year with Pickens taking all the catches away.
Yeah.
Maybe 2-3 years ago.
I don't know. Amon-Ra, I think, is a better route runner. CD is definitely a more dynamic. Like, he'll definitely get that ball in the air. He's definitely more of a highlight reel guy. Grob, 23, whatever. We are not taking a linebacker in the first round. That will not get on the field over Warner or Greenlaw. It's like taking a quarterback in the first round. A strong side linebacker barely see the field. The thing about that is Yeah, I know. The backups on defense play though. Like your backup players typically do play. I hear what you're saying. They now that you have Greenlaw, you probably don't take a linebacker in the first round. But if you really thought a linebacker was spectacular, I would take him in the first round because the Greenlaws and the Warners are nearing the end, and it doesn't last forever. Niner Man 101. What do you guys think about Ted Hurst in the fourth round? I don't think he's going to be there in the fourth round. I'm pretty confident that he will be gone before the fourth round. But yes, if he's there in the fourth round, absolutely, I would absolutely run that card up and draft him. I'm a big Ted Hurst fan. Sunday_living, Mason, Garendo, and James can't wait for the 49ers to announce another good running back that they can misuse. Worthless. Wow. Stefan drops this one. Who is your least favorite 49er position coach? What do you think? Do you have a least favorite 49er position coach? I
think most people would say Chris Forrester.
I'd say
he's such a great guy.
Mick Lombardi seems kind of like, you're coaching the quarterbacks? Really?
Hey.
I mean, he doesn't look like a quarterback.
He's tiny guy. He's really tiny.
I mean, does he look like is he? I don't know. I mean, you don't have to be able to play defensive tackle to coach defensive tackles, so you shouldn't have to look like a quarterback to be a quarterback coach. But there's a lot of good coaches on this staff. As far as least favorite, I'd say him. He seems a little smug. I don't know. That's just my thought. All right, that's going to do it for us. Final thought before we bolt for the door, Sterling. I know the draft is approaching. It's about 3 weeks off. What are you looking for from the Niners down the stretch here? Are there indications or things that you like to look for between now and the draft?
Yeah, it does seem like as the draft days come closer and come closer. Last year we got more indications it was between Micah Williams and I'm forgetting his name. I don't know why right now, but they kept him on this last year. Yes, Walter Nolan. They got indications those were the two guys they liked. It was the type of players that they like. And usually in the next 2 weeks, we hear of inklings, some rumors that the Niners want this type of player, XYZ type of player. So I'm currently leaning right now them taking an edge rusher in round 1. Which will be shown in my next mock draft coming out next week. But I would like to know in the next 2 weeks at least what position or what side of the football they're leaning, which I think we will know. So it'll be good to see if they want to give the keys of the draft to Raheem Morris, or if Shanahan's, after doing it last year, says, I'm playing keep away this year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. The edge rush, I can't. It's weird because it's like you can almost like eliminate all these positions if you really logically go through it. But I think edge rush, when you're 20th or when you're 32nd and you have 20 sacks, come on, you got to get sacks. You got to somebody who can sack the quarterback. Now I think Zion Young would be really viable, but I think the off-field thing scares them. I think Cassius Howell is really attractive, but probably the short arms could wind up scaring them. My guess is push comes to shove, and they go edge rusher and they go for a guy like Gabe Yakus, because he is explosive, dynamic. You think of Raheem Morris. I think of, the Rams and what they have there on their D-line and Jared Verse. And I think of Yakus as a Jared Verse, 6'4", 260, super strong, very athletic, great get off. Production was there, wrestling background. I could see Yakus being, better than the short-armed Cassius Howell because of the arm length, better than Zion Young in their mind because has a cleaner off-field track record, and I could see him being the pick. There you go. Gabe Yakus. We took an hour and 29 minutes to tell you Gabe Yakus. Anyway, That's going to do it for us. Hey, what did you think? Last one on the way out the door. There was so much talk. Jed talked, Shanahan talked, Lynch talked from the owners' meetings, and there was a lot of revelations. They're not going to trade Renardo Green. They look at Brett Toth as a center. Shanahan has 5 things that he wants Purdy to work on. There were, a number of different little anecdotes. Jed came out and made it seem like Ayuk could still be on the team. What stood out to you from the owners' meetings that that we haven't touched that maybe we should probably touch?
Yeah, forgive me for not knowing the exact wordage that Jed York used, but I did find the difference in how he spoke about Kyle Shanahan's future compared to John Lynch's future very interesting. Of like, we want Kyle here forever. Oh, then John's also here as long as he's under contract. It was like, oh, okay. Like, I'm not opposed to John leaving. I think there have been a lot of mishaps as a GM that could have gotten him fired. And I think Kyle, in his own right, has shown to be very valuable to the organization. But I do think that the Niners are at least not preparing, but are certainly open to the idea of a world without John Lynch. And I don't think Jed York is open to one without Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, and I thought that was interesting too. It's like, he could have just said, yeah, Kyle and John, yeah, these guys are here. But he's like, Kyle, we love, how was the phrasing on Kyle? It was like,
we love Kyle. We want him here forever.
We want him here forever. We want him here forever. And then we love JL. He's like,
that's it.
Going nicknames. The other one I thought was the reason. It's funny you pointed to that because the thing that I thought was bogus there was this is your head coach and your general manager. This is not your backup free safety and your third string tight end. And Jed was like, what do they have in their contracts? I don't know.
You signed them.
What do they have? I mean, Kyle, I think he's got like 2 or 3 years left. And I think John may have, I don't even know. John, I mean, that is just such bullshit. I mean, that is just such crap. But I mean, it's fine. It's fine. It's all fine, but it's like, it just, come on, really? You want us to believe that the owner of $1 billion enterprise doesn't know the contractual status of his incredibly valuable head coach and his general manager, the guy who drafts the players on his team? I mean, he knows their contractual situation absolutely like the back of his hand. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. You ain't fooling nobody, Jed.
Come on. I mean, I'm not saying that he knows, Marquise Siegel's bonus structure, but he knows how many years he's got Shanahan under contract. He knows.
Yes.
So that was a little like, what? I don't even know. We want those guys here forever. I don't even know if they'll want to stay or if they'll want to stay in their same roles. That was the other one. That also kind of that reeks of like we're hiring a new GM and now you're the president, but we don't fire you because we like you. I mean, didn't it sound like that kind of? It was like
Josh Williams, welcome to your new promotion. Don't leave for Atlanta in a year.
Yeah. So we shall see. I thought the other one that was kind of interesting was just the Ayuk, where John and Kyle are like, Ayuk's played his last game, but Jed's like, hey, who knows? But what's really clear is they want something for Ayuk.
Yeah.
And that part of it is kind of like, and what did you think of Rosenthal from the NFL Network saying they're not going to get anything? They're looking bad. Do the Niners look bad? I don't think they look bad, but I mean, I could, if I wanted to, I have the sheet of paper here somewhere that shows the contractual breakdown if you release him before and after June 1st. So, what do they want? They want him. They want him to be released with a June 1st designation, but they want it to happen right now so he can move on to his team.
I think that's what his representation wants. It's what other teams want because, like the Commanders, for example, were like, we have Terry McLaurin and really nobody else alongside him, and we know that BA wants to go to Washington and play with Jaden Daniels, but if you're the 49ers, it's just business of like, why would we let this guy go? Let's hold out hope that, let's say, the Commanders again on draft day don't get a receiver rounds 1 through 4. And they're sitting there round 6, round 7, like, and you'll take anything to get Ayuk off your roster. But on top of that, the Niners would take anything in 2027 too, which might be even smarter to do. Go ahead, go get a 6th rounder in 2027. It's a better draft class anyways. I would do that in a heartbeat. If he just want to be here, you don't want him here. You're not holding him hostage. He's under contract. He did this to himself. So it's like, we're going to do what we can as an organization for us going forward, not for the player who doesn't want to be here at all.
Do they get anything or nothing?
I want to say they get nothing.
I'll say anything just because it just seems like, come on, would you really go through with this kind of rigmarole for months if you were going to get nothing? Don't you think nothing kind of makes you look a little silly? No.
Can you get a conditional 7th round draft pick? I don't know what like the under would be on that, but like, could you get anything like less than 7th round draft pick?
Well, what I was thinking is this. If you look at the Commanders depth chart, the chances are that Luke McCaffrey could get almost cut. So this is a way to save face for everybody. You don't cut Luke, you trade him to the 49ers. And because, I mean, how many receivers do you think Washington's going to carry? I mean, if you look at their depth chart, if they have Ayuk, he's receiver 6. And then that would mean that McCaffrey would be receiver 7. And it's like, there's not going to be a receiver 7. So I kind of feel like the Niners would probably gladly take Luke McCaffrey and be like, hey, look, we got brothers McCaffrey. He'll be our return guy. And and I could see them calling that a win. And I could see it being kind of a win-win where the Commanders are winding up making a trade, moving a guy that they were just going to cut anyway. I don't know. That's just the more I look at their depth chart, I'm like, because I mean, Adam Peters is the general manager. He knew the Ayuk thing. It's not like the Ayuk opportunity was like, whoa, caught him by surprise. He knew that. He's known this entire offseason that Ayuk could be coming his way. But what did they do in the offseason? They have Terry McLaurin. Then they added Treylon Burks. They added De'Ami Brown. They added Van Jefferson. They still have Jalen Lane. And then they also have Nick Nash from San Jose State. They got a couple other receivers. If you're going to add Ayuk, that's 7. And then Luke McCaffrey would be receiver number 8. You see what I'm saying? So they may wind up cutting Luke McCaffrey. And this is the way to kind of basically just say, Niners can say, hey, look, we got something. And the Commanders can go, hey, look, we didn't have to trade anything. I don't even know. The draft picks, I don't know. I don't know if I could see 27 draft picks. Maybe, but everybody loves that 27 draft supposedly. So I don't know. To me, it seems like Luke McCaffrey. Get ready for a Ayuk Luke McCaffrey swap in August. I'd go for that. I'll take it.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, 100%.
If that's the way it shakes out, God bless. All right. On that note, we will bolt for the door. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Thanks to all of you guys. Thanks to Sterling. And have a great night. Damon is out tomorrow. I will not be streaming tomorrow with Damon, but tomorrow at 10:45, Chase Sr. and I will be streaming. So check that out tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of.